Morning, everyone. Hope we're well on this very sunny day for our FE Analytics Fund Picking and Portfolio Building webinar. Those of you that haven't joined us for a Demo Day Wednesday, as the name suggests, we do one of these every Wednesday. We like to mix it up a bit. We do go quite broad and look at entire applications on these webinars, but there are quite a few of the Demo Day Wednesdays. We like to get into the weeds of various different applications and look at a various aspect of it. So today's one of those. As I said, we're going to be looking very much at kind of the data side of analytics, how you use it to filter on data, how you use it to find particular funds, when you're building portfolios, what to be mindful of in terms of some of those extra settings, and equally how this touches the other areas of our ecosystem as well, particularly when it comes to portfolio building. Once I have a portfolio in analytics, where else can that go? Well, I can push that into cash cow, I can push that into advisor asset, etc. And equally, when I'm building a portfolio, do I always have to do this manually, or can this integrate to the outside world, my CRM, to pull that data across? Well, good news, yes, it can. As we've got integrations with lots of third-party solutions, we'll be looking at that as well. By way of an introduction, I'm David Scholes, Director of Wealth Sales. So I'll be walking you through this morning. I've got a couple of colleagues in the background as well, waiting for questions. So if you've got any questions through this session, there's a little question box in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Feel free to click on that at any time, ask as many questions as you like, and they'll be answering that on the fly live as we go through this. And if we get so many questions they can't cope, and there's loads at the end, I'll dive in and make sure none are left unanswered. Super. Right, before we get into the weeds of analytics, we always like just to take a quick step back. Oh, I've got so many screens open here, I'm losing track of where I am. I'd like to take a bit of a step back and explain where analytics actually sits in this ecosystem I keep referring to. So the ecosystem I'm referring to is named Nexus. So we have this Nexus ecosystem now, and the ambition of ours has always to be to create a one-stop shop solution that does everything an advisor needs, neatly tethered and integrated into your back office and your custodian or your platform. So again, all your client data is held in the back office, all your assets are held in the platform. We can suck and ingest all of that data into our ecosystem. There's so much you can do with it in our ecosystem. So you can obviously push that into something like analytics, which we'll be focusing on quite heavily today, that does risk profiling, reporting, data analysis, fund research, etc. Then you've got Command Deck as well, which gives you the visualization of that data. So again, pulling the data from the back office, pulling all the data from those platforms, giving you a source of truth in where all your assets are stored, who's looking after what, how much you're charging, etc. Demographic data. And then equally, you've got CashCalc as well, which we'll touch on lightly today because of that connector between analytics and CashCalc when it comes to portfolios. But that gives you the client portal, the cash flow, and the financial planning calculators as well. And in this new world of AI, we've just launched into, we're ourselves using AI to try and leverage as much value out of these applications as possible. So that's what Nexus is now trying to develop, AI agents that sit on top of that primary layer that allow a user to basically get an agent to go into those underlying applications and pull whatever you need from it and surface it up to Nexus. And to give you a bit of a sneak peek, this is something you should all be expecting over the coming weeks and months. This is what the Nexus platform looks like. And every time you log in, this is the screen you'll log into. No longer will you be logging into CashCalc over here and Analytics over here and Advisor Asset over here and Command Deck over here, separate login screens for each. You'll all just simply log in straight into Nexus, and then you can port yourself across to the applications on the left-hand side. So Nexus AI is our AI agents, including a Nexus Note Taker tool that sits in every meeting, transcribes the meeting, creates a recording of the call, and you can spin up various bits of content off the back of that, like a summary of the meeting and a vulnerability assessment, etc. As I said, Command Deck is aggregating all of that data, giving you that 360 view. You've got FE CashCalc and then FE Analytics as well. And each time you click on any one of those, it just single signs on directly to that application, obviously, so long as you're enabled for them. Advisor Asset is still separated because it is technically still a separate product. You can still log into that separately, but as a lot of you will know, we will actually touch on Advisor Asset in today's session. Advisor Asset is now fully embedded within our live subscription with Analytics, automatically gets access for free, quote unquote, to Advisor Asset. So you'll have your account sitting there within that system. So I'll kind of show you how the two integrate with one another now that it's within that application. So that's what Nexus is. That's what we're building. You'll see hear a lot of us talk about Nexus over the coming weeks and years as we start building this out and start integrating it more with AI. There's a very, very busy roadmap in 2026, so a huge amount to look forward to, which is very exciting. Let's get stuck into analytics. So I won't bother single signing myself in because I've already got it open. Let's just close that down to make it a little less busy. So I would imagine that most people watching this are fairly familiar with this screen. I can't imagine there's too many people that are novices and haven't really used analytics before. Just in case, we'll just spend maybe a minute or two just quick overview on how to use analytics and navigation. And as I said, then we'll dive straight into some of these features in terms of fund selection, fund picking, and portfolio construction. So those of you that haven't seen analytics before, completely online, you only ever really navigate from this one screen, and you work and flow always from left to right. So almost without except this webinar, I'll be doing exactly that. On the left-hand side, I'll be telling it the data that I want to look at. On the right-hand side, I'll be telling it the features that I want to use, and then I'll just be clicking generate at the bottom, and it just basically creates the content that I've requested, taking the data, taking the feature, smashing them together, creates the content in a pop-up window. If I like it, I can PDF it. If I don't, I can close it down. Let me just get out of Teams before I start getting loads of messages pop up. So when it comes to fund selection, when it comes to fund picking, this could mean a number of different things, right? So you've got single manager funds, you've got multi-asset funds, you could be looking for decent ethical solutions, you could even be looking for MPS technically. The database of ours is enormous. You've got 300,000 funds, you've got 1,500 MPS, you've got thousands of sectors, thousands of indices, and all of that data, that enormous great database, just sits behind this screen. And as I said, it's your job really to tell it what data you want to pull and surface onto this screen to start actually creating some content off the back of it. So on the left-hand side, we'll start off with just picking individual funds, finding funds manually, and then we'll start really getting into filtering that data, putting it into tables, etc. But if I wanted to find a fund on the left-hand side, all of the entire database is divided into universes, basically based on legal structure. So I can go and look at Unit Trust and OEIC. If it's off platform, it's going to be pension. If it's off platform, it could be insurance as well. It's another universe. Got global ETFs, US equities, UK equities. You've got the MPS sector down here as well. You've even got supermarkets as well, or platforms. So I could just select Aviva Wrap and it would just show me the funds available on the Aviva Wrap platform. If I click on Unit Trust and OEICs, underneath that will load up all of their managers. I'm just going to click on one at random here. Let's just go grab Allianz, and then under Allianz you'll get all of their funds, including, let's say, gilt yield. Can click on gilt yield, click on add, and add that to my screen. Now, every single fund I add to this list will have a little fact sheet icon, and it will have a little alert icon. Fact sheets always look fairly similar for every fund. It will kind of subtly differ if I'm starting to look at maybe an investment trust or maybe an MPS. Obviously, the data sets are slightly different, but for a fund, multi-asset or single manager, it's going to look very much like this. Got ESG ratings. I've got our FE Crown ratings as well, what sectors they're part of, the objective, the charges, the biographies of the fund managers, etc. The reports from the providers themselves, so the KIDS documents, the providers, the provider fact sheets, the annual, semi-annual reports. Performance tab, looking at the performance of that fund versus benchmark. With the quartile information, ESG data provided by ISS, and then MiFID costs and charges as well from the ET template, dividend history, breakdown. Breakdown gives you quite a lot of granular detail for a lot of these funds, so it will tell you how many holdings there are in each fund. And if you click on that little button there, it will always show you the top 10s, but if you click on that button there, it will give you every single line of stock, whether that's 50, 100, 5,000. It will just give you a nice illustration of exactly what that fund invests into. That's full portfolio holdings, we call that. And then historical breakdown as well. We're obviously collecting this asset allocation and fund data on a monthly basis, so we can track what the fund size is doing over a long period of time, and also track what the asset allocation is doing, sector split, regional split, over that long arc of time, how that's changing, ebbs and flows. And if I wanted just to create a fairly simple report, if I can click on that button, that would just give me that one page. If I click on that button, it will give me 5, 6, 7 pages. All of the tabs I've just looked at there, it will just push that into a fact sheet. But if I click on the summary one, that's probably the nicer one to look at. Again, your logo in the top right hand corner, and all of the information, relevant information on that fact sheet packaged together onto one page. So that's individual funds and finding them. Now, clearly, so this comes up quite a lot in questions. So if I'm going to use P12, I always use P12 because it's a really good example of this. If I'm looking for the Invesco Perpetual High Income Fund, so I could just type in Invesco High Income and use the name. Obviously, naming conventions can differ, so it's slightly tricky sometimes. A database of 300,000 funds to find a fund on its name can be slightly difficult when they're all called UK Equity or Global, etc. If I know the code, I know that the city code of that fund is P12. So if I type in P12 and enter, suddenly it doesn't find it, which is odd because I know that's a unit trust and OEIC. So why doesn't it find it? Well, it doesn't find it because I'm looking for a particular share class that isn't the primary share class. That Invesco Perpetual High Income Fund might have 10 different share classes. We assign one of them as the primary share class, and generally there's a rule. There are various different logics in the background to assign a driver a primary. It's usually accumulation over income. It's retail over institutional, and it's also, I think it's the cheapest share class available on most of the platforms. So that will be the primary. Now that's clearly not the primary. I think that's actually an old share class. So when you ever come across this where you can't find it, you've got two options. You can either deselect that tab there, and now that's looking at every single share class, not just the main ones, the primary ones. So now when I search for P12, as if by magic, it's going to appear. P12, so I can add that in. Or the other way that people miss quite often, there's a massive search box up here, but it's camouflaged, so most people miss it. It takes up the whole body of your screen up here, so I could just type in P12 up here and enter, and that will search every single share class across the entire database, and then it finds it within seconds. I can click on add and add that in as well. If I want to compare that against its sector, by the way, I've got the ability to hit the button beside it and click on add as benchmark, add fund and benchmark, which is its own index benchmark, or add fund and sector, and it will find the sector for me and add that in as well. It's added in twice, so I'll get rid of the other one. So then my sector appears as well. You can also bulk load a load of funds as well. So talking about fund picking and fund selection, beginning into filtering in a few moments, but just bear in mind, if I wanted to import a load of funds, maybe this is my fund panel, or maybe these are my favorite American funds or UK funds, European funds, etc., or multi-asset funds. If I get rid of these, if you click on that bulk code importer, again, a bit of a camouflage button. Most people miss that it is actually a button. You can click on bulk code importer. I can click on next. I've conveniently got all of these codes in the background. It works with ISIN, City, Ormex, or CEDL. I've got City code here, which is our own coding structure. But I can paste them in there. There's 100 odd of those. I can do 1,000 at a time, so there's not really much of a limit. It looks at the entire database. Again, every single share class, it will find it. It will tell you what universe it's part of, and I can click on add. And as if by magic, there we go. There's all of my funds now on the left-hand side. Found for me. Now I can save that, again, another button that looks hidden. Save, so I could save that as my fund panel, and anytime I want to recall that later on, let's do that. If I just clear this active list here, let's get rid of these funds for a second, wipe the slate clean. If I click on that open button on the left-hand side, these are all of my all of the save lists that I've created. When you save a list, it gives you the opportunity to put it into a folder, so you can do that quite neatly as well. Again, if it's my fund panel and I might want to break it down into risk levels, cautious, balanced, moderate, I could have that. I could have one folder saying risk profiles, and when I open that up, I could have all of the different risk profiles that I have, and then each one of those is tethered to a range of funds or model portfolios. But I've got, there we go, my fund panel. Double click on it, just saves me a lot of time. This could just be 5 life strategy funds or 10 Tatton model portfolios, or in this case, it's about 100 odd funds. Come on, there we go, 118 funds again appear on the left-hand side. And again, what do I want to do with that data? So this comes back to kind of the topic of this webinar, which is kind of fund selection and research. On the right-hand side of my screen, under what do I want to do with this data? I'm going to move away from charts because there aren't that many charts that can handle 118 investments. Scatter charts can, actually. We might pop onto that if we've got enough time on this session. But tables are brilliant. Tables can handle as many funds as you throw at it. So I can throw this into a table. We're going to be focusing quite a lot on different tables here. I've got a performance table we can start with, but I can start building my own as well. Just note, you've got tons of different tables you could run off here. If I want to look at ratios, you've got a ratio table. If you want to look at fact sheet data, you've got a fact sheet table. These are tables that essentially we've created for you, and you just pick the one you want and click on generate, and those 118 funds on the left-hand side get thrown into a performance table. I've got 118 rows of data. This might take a few seconds, and it will then give me the performance of each one. How long is this going to take? Shall I minimize this and come back to it? That looks like it's going to load up. Here we go. So it's not static either. It's dynamic. So at the moment it will sort them based on alphabetical but then you can resort the order. Look, I want to resort this over 5 years. Let's have a look at the best fund over 5 years. And you can also color code the quartiles as well. So under highlight at the very top, you can click on quartile, and it will then quartile the color codes. Blue is first, green is second, yellow third, and red is fourth. So again, if we talk about kind of and portfolio construction, again, come back to the topic of this webinar, in between that is trying to find the most relevant funds to put into my portfolio. So this is a great way of doing it. Again, whether that's multi-asset, MPS, single manager funds, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really differ dependent on what you're trying to find here. But I can very quickly load up these tables, find the best funds that I want to invest my clients into, and then start popping that into the portfolio, which we'll come on to in a bit. It's probably worth pointing out, though, that this table I'm looking at here just simply lumps all of these funds together, and the quartiles are against each other. So that's simply saying that that 91 fund is the best fund out of all of the other funds you're looking at. It's first quartile. It's not saying that it's the best fund out of its sector. It's out of the other 118 funds. You can toggle the logic though. By default, the logic will just simply be to quartile against all the other funds in the table. The other thing to bear in mind back on this main screen, you've got something called ranking method. I've never really agreed with the terminology here because it's not exactly that obvious, but if you select full sector instead of within table, it now compares them against their sectors rather than all the other funds within the same table. This might take a few seconds to load up, so I'm just going to let that run in the background and we'll come back to that in a few moments. Right, let's just probably worth pointing out as well, every single fund has got that alert icon as well. So again, if we're talking about fund selection, I've got a number of multi-asset funds, single manager funds I really like using with my clients. Maybe these Aviva multi-asset funds. I can click on these little alert icons and start setting myself some alerts. So again, so many of my clients are invested in this fund. So if the performance ever drops off the cliff, I'd like to know about it. If the charges ever go up, if the Crown ratings suddenly take a bit of a nosedive, or some of the other ratings as well. There's so many different fields you can start searching for in here, and you can save as many of those as you like, and your email address will be pre-populated down there. And any one of those ever triggered, you'll be sent an email telling you about it. Probably the other thing I should have pointed out on the fact sheets is I was talking about all the different share classes for every single fund. You'll notice every single fact sheet you go into, this for particular fund, the driver share class is BAC. You've got all the other units down here, so you can actually very quickly flip between the other share classes. So I can click on the XAC share class, and you'll see most of the information on the fact sheet will stay the same because clearly the fund size aggregates, still got the same sector, still got the same benchmark, obviously slightly different ISIN, the same objectives, but obviously the charges will change fairly drastically, as obviously the different share classes will carry those different charges. And obviously the performance that you pull through will take into account those charges that are relevant to each ISIN, each share class. Super. Right, let's take a step towards, or take maybe a step back towards filtering. So this is just me taking a load of data, dumping it into analytics and running some analysis on it. What about if I wanted to filter or research like an entire sector? Again, I'm going to try and skip between single manager and multi-asset here because I appreciate with so many people watching, it's probably going to be some of you using one or the other or both. So first and foremost, I could just go and grab a sector. There's nothing stopping me on here saying, look, I just want to look at the North American sector. Should be under N, North American sector. So under sector, North American, add that in. And on the right-hand side, throw that against the same table. This doesn't actually give me what I want, but I just wanted to explain what this looks like. It's just going to give me one line of data because that's what I've asked for. Sector, table, smash them together. What do I get? A table showing me the sector average of the performance 1 month to 10 years. But I want to look at every single fund within that sector because again, I want to maybe start finding some decent North American funds for my client, or some decent ethical funds, or some decent, balanced risk multi-asset funds. So if I wanted to crack open that sector, it's just that second tick box. So click on the second tick box, and now whenever I go and create some content on the right-hand side, it cracks it open and now looks at absolutely everything. 103 different funds within that sector. And again, we can start color coding quartiles, not just quartiles, by the way. You can do quartiles, quintiles, deciles, and percentiles. You can even show them as well. So I'm doing quartiles, but I might want to show the quartile number as well. So I've got the color code, but I might want to actually show that it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And also probably the most popular one actually is absolute. So I'm showing the quartiles. I'm showing the quartile colors. I don't need to show the numerical value, but what I would like to see is, okay, well, it's fourth quartile. That's because it's ranked 83rd out of 103 funds in that particular time period. So you can actually see where it's ranked. If you ever wanted to compare some of these funds against one another, you can just tick on these little boxes as well. Maybe these are 3, again, multi-asset single manager funds that I might want to, again, get into the weeds and look in a bit more detail. So I can click on fund comparison, and it puts it into a little parade, and now looks at everything: ratings, charges, ESG scores, performance, etc., etc. And at the very bottom, nice little correlation table as well to show you how correlated those assets are. Unsurprisingly, all three North American funds very, very correlated to one another. So there's no point picking all three. Might as well just pick one of them. Probably the cheapest. Super. So that's just looking inside sector, but that's great and all. But there's 103 funds in that sector. When you start looking at the mixed investment sector, you probably have 200, 300, 400 funds in that sector. So I don't really want to load up an entire table of 300 rows of data and then try and find the best fund or the most appropriate fund for my client. What you can do back on this main screen, therefore, teeing me up to filters. So under filters, you can start building filters to sift through the data, those 300,000 funds or MPS, and I can find the most suitable investment solutions first and then start loading up tables. So if I click on new, can build a brand new filter. We'll do this on the fly. Let's move to multi-asset. So on the left hand side, there's all of the fields of data on our database, pretty much all of them, and on the right hand side you've got how many matches you've got. So again, unit trust and OEIC is essentially on platform assets, pension off platform. You've got MPS as well. You could go down, you've got about 1,400 MPS solutions, pretty much all of them. And then also AIC investment companies, ETFs. I don't think I've enabled myself every single universe. It's a bit messy as well because I do demos to Irish clients as well and offshore clients like South Africa. So ignore most of these. A lot of these wouldn't be enabled, so don't get confused with this. But if you click on unit trust and OEICs, these are the relevant filters for unit trust and OEICs. So we can say, okay, well, if I just wanted to like a catch-all multi-asset, that's quite useful. So there's asset class. So we can say, you know what, I don't care what sector it's part of. I just need it to be multi-asset, and click on add, and straight away it halves basically. It's interesting to note, half the funds in the unit trust and OEIC universe are multi-asset, half a single manager. So 1,400 in total. Out of those 1,400, okay, let's make sure they've got at least 4 crowns and above in terms of a crown rating. Need a bit of consistency, alpha, volatility, and performance. There are the different ratings we have as well that you can use. Looking at quartile, whatever sector they're part of, let's just make sure they're at least maybe second quartile over 3 and 5. Add those across. You've got ratio filters to look at as well. You've got ESG characteristics, not just the ISS stuff, but also our own data that we're getting from the ET templates, various different exclusions, whether it considers PAI, whether it conforms to Article 8 or 9 of the, I don't know if I remember the acronym. I think that's, I'm not going to embarrass myself. I can't remember the acronym for that one. SDR labels as well, the relatively new SDR labels. Have they got an SDR label? And if so, which one? And the percentage exposure to impact, focus, and improvers. These are relatively new. So we've created all the relevant plumbing for ESG data. Admittedly, a lot of the providers aren't really disclosing a lot of that data yet. They're getting a lot better. So I do checks on this every few months, and it gets better and better and better. So you'll start getting a lot more use out of these filters as the fund managers start providing that data to us. Also fact sheet characteristics, so charges, let's make sure the OCF, that's annual charge, initial charge, you've also got OCF down here. Let's make sure the OCF is below, I think the average single manager fund is about 0.8. So let's see if we're doing multi-asset, let's see if we can get some below 0.8. You've also got transactional, incidental costs, launch dates. Fund size is quite a good one as well. Okay, I want to make sure there's some heritage with these funds. Let's make sure there's about 200 million invested at least, and all the way down to investment characteristics. You've got things like asset split, sector split, credit ratings. So we can say, look, I want to make sure these investments, maybe I'm worried about the trend towards North American, so we want to make sure they've got less than 30% invested in North American, for example. Defensive and growth assets, you know, again, I'm looking at my risk profiling tool, and we need to make sure there's at least 60% invested in equities or growth. I can filter based on that as well, slightly less granular. Even stuff like investment areas, investment focus at ESG, investment methods, stuff like passive, and even platform availability. You know, I'm going to be using Transact, so let's make sure these funds are available on Transact. There's so many filters. Understandably, there is a search, but so I don't think bloody I'm going to have to remember all of this. You don't have to. There's a little quick search at the very top here, so we can say, okay, well, I've mentioned ESG a second ago. So where's that ethical filter? If I start typing in a buzzword like ethical, click on the link, it will then find ethical, sustainable, and I won't bother adding this in, but you can then add that in, and then it will rework the numbers on the right-hand side. Incidentally, you can save these filters. So if you click on the save icon at the very top here, I could save that as my multi-asset filter, whatever I want it to be called. And then that will save that onto the system, and I can just reuse that whenever I like. I'll show you an example of that in a few moments. But the 28 funds I've found, let's have a look at those. So click on show results. It will show me the funds that have met all my criteria. I didn't make this specific to a sector, which I could have done, but I've got there's showing me the quartiles, the OCF, and again I can resort the size on these as well, so I can see which is the highest and lowest in terms of fund size. I might want to discount a few more from here, because how big the Vanguard LifeStrat 80 is. And if I want to start pinging those back to my main screen, start running some analysis, I can start clicking on these little green arrows. I'm just going to make sure that the main screen is actually clean. It's this one, isn't it? Okay, just before I start, sure there's nothing already in there. I can start clicking on these individual green icons, and they will push the funds back to my main screen. If I do the big green one at the top, it just does all of them for me. So if I want all of them, I can just click on OK. And now, hopefully, as if by magic, if I close that down back to my main screen, there are the 28 funds ready and waiting. What do I want to do with those funds? Well, I want to throw those into a performance table where we left, and click on Go. Now, just to minimize that, go to the other one, because I think that's finished loading now. It's this one. If we cast our mind back 5 minutes ago, we were looking at those 118 funds, and I wanted to divide them all into their sectors. It ran that in the background, so I've got that now, all my 118 funds neatly divided into what sectors they're part of. So now when I start color coding the quartiles, I've got exactly that. I can see out my targeted absolute return funds. These are how well they're doing. You know, my Europe excluding UK funds got quite a few of those. I can see that the best performers there, etc. Go to the other table. I will show you how to build your own tables in a minute, rather than just always looking at performance. But here's my multi-asset table, kind of the same idea. I've got my 2 flexible investment funds, 40 to 85, 13 of those. It tells you how many funds are in the sector as well. So 289, there's 9 of them we're looking at in here. And again, we can start color coding different things, quartiles, quintiles, deciles, etc. Now, again, this is all great, but again, we're only looking at performance. But I would imagine when you're doing your fund research and building portfolios, you're going to want to look at a load of things. You're going to look at volatility. You're going to want to look at charges. I've filtered on a load of stuff here, and I actually want to see the filter results. So we filtered on fund size, but so I actually want to see what the fund size is on here too. So just bear in mind, on the right-hand side, very useful feature under the report tab, you've got custom table, where you can build your own table and basically dictate those columns. So I'd imagine that most of you would probably just use custom table rather than tables in here, because again, the tables are plug and play. We've built some templates for you, just use them and plug them into the data on the left. But under reports, you've got custom table, you can just build your own, and you can kind of bespoke it to what you want to look at. So if I click on report builder, just open this up. Come on. So I can build my own table here. And again, very, very similar to the filter. So I've got all of the different fields of data on the left-hand side. Rather than filtering, we're just simply adding the columns. So what do I want my table to look like? Well, I want 1 year, 3 year, 5 year in terms of performance. I don't want 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. That's a bit naff. I'm not really interested in that. So I'll put that across there. You can also, you're so flexible here. You can do last price, month end, quarter end, year end. So I could mess around with when that goes up until. It defaults to month end, but you can do last price if you want essentially yesterday. You can do annualized as well, maybe 3 and 5 annualized figures. You've even got user defined, so I might want actual specific dates that I have in mind for these. Ratios, maybe max drawdown, volatility, could start adding that stuff in as well. Add that across. Fact sheet data. I won't go into all of these, of course we've got tons, but again, fund size, charges, asset allocation, the ESG labels that we just spoke about, the growth and defensive split, platform availability. So maybe I haven't filtered on platform availability, but I just want to ticker across whether it's available on those particular platforms. So really go to town with this. I think the limit is about 70 columns. It maxes out at, but so you can add as many columns pretty much as you like, because not many people are going to go more than 70. And click on save. Save that as I think I've got one called fund research table. So once I've created that, I can come back to this main screen, and under custom table, under report layout, there's all of the tables that I've created. I think it was called fund research table. There we go, fund research report. So that's my table on the 28 multi-asset funds, and generate. Again, I can flip between full sector and within table, so I can divide them into their individual sectors. But this will now give me a bespoke table and a bespoke filter. So built a bespoke filter, built a bespoke table, smash the two together, and now I should have exactly what I need. And again, exactly the same options as before. I can resort the order. I can start messing around with color-coded quartiles. There's no difference in that. But as you can see, I've got a mix of everything now. Bit of performance, max drawdown, some ratings. I've got the yield, the OCF, the growth and defensive split, the historical yield, and I use Transact, Fidelity, and Aviva. So I've now just got a ticking across whether those share classes are available on those particular platforms. Now, just to show you how automated this can be, let's clear this all away. Let's just pretend that I've not done any of this for the last half an hour and I've just logged in afresh into analytics. Under that fund filter tab, all of the saved filters that I've created are in here. That's why the benefit is saving them, and they're going to be updating for you every day automatically. So if I just go grab my North, let's just again flip things around. Let's just use single manager. If I've got a North American filter and click on add, what do I want to do with that data? Okay, I can use any feature on the right hand side, but if I just throw that into my fund research report and generate, it's now doing two jobs in one. It's taking the filter, it's running the filter as of today. So this might take a few seconds, but it's running the filter, going through all of my criteria, finding all the funds that have met those criteria, and then whatever the results it has, is then looking at my bespoke table and throwing it into my bespoke table. And again, we can start color coding quartiles and changing the order. And again, I've done this within table. I think this is two sectors. I think I've got North American and smaller companies. So I'm lumping them all together. But again, you can divide them out if you like. So again, quite a lot of intelligence and analysis in the background. Within what 10 seconds, it's now giving me all of that information, whether it's single manager, multi-asset, again, it doesn't matter. And we can start color coding. So you see these little two star icons next to it. We call that extended share class history. So if you cast your mind back again and remember when those clean share classes came out some years ago, they didn't have any history, but they were the primary share classes, and people were getting annoyed that I took a clean share class and I could only go back 6 months when the old share class was alive for 20 years. We basically glued them together. We glued the clean share classes to the old share classes. So whenever you take a clean share class now, even if it was technically born in this case, maybe 5 years ago, you can still push the data back maybe 20, 30 years because it just simply reverts to the old share class. What we won't do though is quartile it for you because it's not really a fair, sorry, not quartile, max drawdown. We will still do the quartiles over the period it has been alive, but if you're ever looking at periods where it wasn't alive, we won't quartile them for you because it technically isn't right. It isn't the same share class, if that makes sense. It's looking at the older share class. So if you're wondering why some of these aren't highlighted, but the figures are still pulling through, that's why it's got the little asterisk there. Sorry, bit of a tangent. I can't remember what I was going to say now. Yeah, automate it. So I can save the table. So if I save the table up here and save this as my North American research table, there we go, save that. Give that a second or two. Super, it's saved. What that means thereafter is if I come back to this main screen, you can do this for charts, by the way, so you don't just have to do this for tables. But if I click on Retrieve Report on the right-hand side, loads up all of my tables. I've got so many in here, I was going to search for it, but I should better find it. There we go. If I just basically click on it and open, there's no need to do it now because it's all clearly open. But if I did this in a month's time and I opened it up, it would load up like this. So it would load up the old version, and you'll even have a timestamp up here. So we'll say 18th of March, 10:31 in the morning. And if I wanted to refresh it, all I've got to do then is Options, Refresh Table, that one there. And the beauty is, because it's tethered to an underlying filter, by clicking that one button refresh, it will automatically spin the filter again, find the funds that have met your criteria, and populate the table. So don't be surprised if when you hit that refresh button, you don't get 15 funds, you get 13 or 25, and then fresh data pumped into it in terms of quartiles and all the data on the right-hand side. So again, I'm trying to focus everyone's attention on the fact that you can do this on any type of legal structure. I hope that's coming across. This isn't just single manager. You can do this on multi-asset as well. If you're trying to find for a particular risk grade, if you're just simply trying to construct a portfolio because you're trying to find a decent North American fund or ESG fund, this is how you do it. Hopefully that's been useful. Those of you that joined the webinar late, missed the first couple of minutes, please just bear in mind there is that questions box at the very top of your screen. Any questions I'm going through this, feel free to ask away. And my colleagues are, again, in the background waiting for those questions to come through, and they'll answer it on the fly for you. Let's go on to portfolio construction. So at the very top here under the portfolio tab, there's multiple ways of getting a portfolio into analytics. You can import the data. Three ways basically. Let's click on new portfolio. I'll explain each one in here. So if you've got all of the data in Excel, like I did a second ago in here, so maybe these are your fund holdings. Let's just pick a few because you're unlikely to have 118 of them. Let's just say these are the funds currently in your portfolio. If I have the codes, what it means, if I come back to that little build screen, under the Tools tab, you can click on Bulk Code Importer. It's exactly, oh, blimey, missed it. Bulk Code Importer. It's exactly the same tool we used a few moments ago. I can just paste those codes in there, click on Next. Again, takes a few seconds. It will find all of those funds for me. But rather than importing them into my active list, it will import them into my portfolio. So I can click on our portfolio and hey presto, there they are. And now I just need to assign the percentages of each one. So that's a very quick way of doing it. The other way, of course, is to do this completely manually. So on the left-hand side, I've got my codes again, so I can just start typing in P12, find that manually, and it will find Invesco High Income, add that across. I've got the name as well. So again, I want that Allianz Gilt Yield. So Allianz Gilt Yield, add that across. And again, just bear in mind, it very much depends on the ISIN or the share class you're picking. That Gilt Yield I just picked had 2 share classes. If they had 5, 6, 7, obviously the charge that pulls through into the performance is going to be based on the share class. So if you pick the wrong share class, and performance is going to be off. Just bear that in mind. So I can add all of these to it. Those of you that have like a core and satellite approach, you might have like a Tatton model portfolio or a Vestra model portfolio sitting there in the middle, and then some funds or multi-asset funds around the side. Just bear in mind, you can add portfolios to a portfolio. That's quite a neat little tip. So under the portfolio tab, any MPS solutions you're enabled with. I think I've got LGT on here. There we go, LGT. So I'm just gonna, this is gonna be such a bad portfolio, but I'm sure you get the point. I add my LGT portfolio to my portfolio. So now I've got an MPS and 3 funds. So we can do maybe 50%. Let's give 50% to LGT and the rest in here, etc. On the left-hand side, bear in mind, you have also got US equities and UK equities as well. So if you want Alphabet, Meta, Tesla, Vodafone, BT, whatever shares your client actually have, we've got direct shares. You can pop those in as well. There is no restriction when it comes to building a portfolio. You can add whatever you like. Add whatever you like, either assign the percentage weighting if you know it. If you don't, you'll probably know the GBP or value. So you know they've got this many pounds in this one, this many pounds in that one, that many pounds in that one. And it will automatically work out the percentage breakdown for you. A very, very important tab is that one, portfolio settings. If you click on that, it allows you to pop in additional charges. So as I've said, when you're building a portfolio based on those share classes, it's going to pull through the OCF. So when you create the performance graphs, the charts, the reports, the performance will always be net of fund charge. You never ever need to worry about that in this industry. However, you do need to worry about all the other charges this industry charges. Understandably, you've got the platform fee for a lot of them. So obviously we don't know what platform it's on because there's 20 of them out there, and this portfolio could be invested in only one of them. We're not to know that. So yes, there's a platform fee of maybe 0.25. Pop that in there. But actually there's an advisor fee of 0.8 as well that I want to include. So therefore we need to do 0.05 and click on OK. So again, when I start creating performance graphs off the back of this and reports, the performance will be net fund charge, net of platform, and net of advisor fee. So completely accurate. You've also got, I just minimize this, you've also got the ability to import from a back office. I'll show you an example of this with our friends at IO. Where are they? There we go. So if you, I'm using IO, but please bear in mind, we've got to integrate with Xplan, Curo, a lot of the platforms as well. So we actually integrate directly with Transact. People like Standard Life, I think we still integrate with. There's loads of them. So, but most people integrate with the back office because obviously clearly a lot of that data is being aggregated into the back office, and you can push that data directly into analytics. So this is my IO account. I've got Keith Baker in here. I can click on Keith. I can click on his plans on the left-hand side. There's his Aegon ISA stocks and shares. Tick on that button, click on FE Analytics and go. And again, all it's doing is just sending analytics the 5 ISINs he invests in and the 5%. Actually, they do units, so it shows the 5 different unit amounts of each fund, and we construct the portfolio on the fly. So back in analytics, I'll just come out of IO. Under the portfolio tab, back on my main screen of analytics, if I type in Keith Baker, there he is, co-funds ISA, click on add, and now I can start. I'll do something very simple. Let's just do a 5-year performance graph of Keith. And there's his portfolio. So obviously saves you a hell of a lot of time if you can get the portfolio data from an outside source into analytics, pushes that in here, and now I can start doing a load of stuff with it. And again, if you think a few moments ago when I was showing you the sector and splitting it open and showing all the different funds, you've got that with the portfolios as well. So if I click on the second tick box and now click on generate, you'll actually see the funds that we pulled across from IO, and there are, what, 8 of them. There we go, there's the 8 funds. So again, IO are just simply sending us the 8 ISIN codes and the unit holdings of each. We create the portfolio, so you can now start running this. And again, I could throw that into my bespoke table or my performance table. So this all really goes around in circles. I can use any of those features on any data set that I have on the left-hand side. I left that portfolio build screen open for a couple of reasons. Back in the portfolio build screen, on the very top here, this integrates to the other areas of our ecosystem. So if I've spent some time building a portfolio in analytics, I can very quickly push it into Advisor Asset for cost charges comparisons, and I can also push that directly into CashCalc as well to start doing some cash flow. Got about 20 minutes. I might just quickly jump onto both of those and show that. There's a few other things before I do that. Let's just quickly. Actually, let's not break the flow. I'll come back to the ATR in a minute. So Advisor Asset, as I said already, that it's built within analytics. So now it used to be a separate application. It's pretty much market leading pension switch tool, platform due diligence tool. That's now fully integrated into your analytics subscription. So any portfolio you're building, you can push into Advisor Asset here. If I minimize that tab, Advisor Asset is essentially now just the platform analysis tools you've got in here. So anytime you want to run platform due diligence, you've got that tab there. Anytime you want to run a pension switch, it's that one. If you're doing a pension switch or any kind of consolidation or switch work, not just pension, if you're doing any kind of switch work that doesn't include a seeding scheme, it's just that one. So I always say that these two are basically the same feature. That's when you don't have a seeding scheme, and that's when you do. So if you click on any one of those, it ports you directly into your Advisor Asset account. If you click on the portfolio tab on the left-hand side, all of the portfolios you're pushing in from analytics will be in here, ready for you to select when you start doing your pension switch analysis. But incidentally, there'll be a lot of you that will use MPS, and therefore a lot of those are already hard-coded for you. So for example, if I click on Add New on the right-hand side and click on Pre-configured DFM, these are the DFMs we already have built into the system. Then they're adding more every week as more and more DFMs appreciate they can get their data on here as well. We don't charge anything for this, so so yeah, if you are using a DFM that isn't on this panel, feel free to go and pester them, because it's very easy to get them set up. But if I use Brooks Macdonald, for example, I can click on Brooks. There's all of the different models they have. Let's go and pick on a couple of them. Let's go and click on that passive one and that passive one. Let's do that one as well. There we go, those 3. And if I click on continue, that would just now pull that directly into my account. Those 3 Brooks Macdonald model portfolios are ready and waiting. And we know the charges of them. We know how the charges subtly differ depending on what platform it's invested in, again, because that share class availability. And it just means that when I go and run a consolidation now, so again, I won't go into this in too much detail because we don't really have time, and this isn't really around portfolio construction necessarily. But just very quickly to show you how that pops up. Flying Keith. Could be. There we go. Keith Baker. He's got 3 seeding schemes. Let's get rid of that 4th one. He's got 3. I've built the projections I'm getting from those schemes, or I'm simply just adding in what the charges are, and we'll work out the projections for you. But he's got an ISA and 2 pensions. So where do I want to put that that business? Well, I'm going to put it into these Brooks models. You can blend, by the way, as well. There we are. You can have 50% Brooks, 50% Funhouse. But given I've just pulled those through, where are they? There we go, Brooks, that's that one. Let's just use that one as well. So there we go. I've got my GIA, my ISA, and my pension. I'm going to put those into those Brooks Macdonald. So Brooks is going to pick up £1 million collectively here, pulls across the right growth rates. I can whack my advisor fees in there as well. That's all hard coded. What have I done there? Is that not coming up? Don't know, that's gone wrong. Okay, let's change that around. I think it might just be an old portfolio. Why is that not working? One last time. I don't know where I've gone wrong here. I can't see where it's obvious. That's annoying. Sorry, folks. I don't know where that's gone wrong. I don't want to give that up, though. Let's try this one. This is one already done. Let's try that. Okay, that's working. I don't know why the other one wasn't working. That's odd. We'll pretend this is still Keith Baker. This is a slightly different client, but it's the same idea. Recommending new investments, looking out across the platforms that I use. So I've added exclusions in here because I only use Aegon, Fidelity, Quilter, and Transact. So it's only going to compare the costs on those platforms. But the point being that it knows the Brooks costs for every single one of those models. It knows what platforms are available on. So it will then run the analysis for me in terms of an ROI. And if I then select the relevant platform that I want to put the business on, it will then compare that against the seeding schemes. So say, well, look, Keith, or in this case, is Sherlock Holmes. This is your existing pot. So if you left those seeding schemes where they are, it's costing you 1.48. You aggregate all of those assets onto a brand new platform. It's only 1.2 with Aegon. We using those Brooks Macdonald's portfolios and using the tiered charge of the platform. And again, I can create a report off the back of that. So that's how it kind of links when you're building a portfolio in analytics. That can very quickly push into Advisor Asset. And when it comes to Cash Calc, I can link to Cash Calc from in here. I can also link to it back to Nexus, but let's just log into Cash Calc very quickly to show you this. Had I have selected push the portfolio data to Cash Calc, that again, let's just pretend that was Keith Baker. If I click on the client tab up here, let's go into Keith Baker now. I've got a cash flow waiting for me in here under him. So I've already cash flowed this client before, and he's got this big pension, 600,000, projecting out into the future. So this is what his current cash flow model looks like. And at the moment, he's in the red by about 282 by the time he gets to 100. And you can see this main pension fund of his starting at 600,000, grows up to retirement, then he's drawing it down, runs out by the time he's about 88. His wife's about 87, and they're having to eat into other pots thereafter. Now that's great, but the assumption for that pension pot is the fact that it's going to grow at 4.5% there. So that's all the assumption underlying those performance numbers. And the reason I've got 4.5% is because Keith's invested in a relatively cautious to moderate portfolio. 4.5 sounds about right. But I always say that's not really going to sound very good in terms of our compliance team or FCA when they come knocking and ask why we projected the 4.5% growth rate, because it kind of gut instinct felt about right. So what we've done here is we've linked and integrated your analytics portfolios into here. So I don't have to use my gut instinct anymore. I can just click the template button instead and type in Keith. There's my Keith Baker pension that's sitting there in analytics. And actually, essentially what we're doing is taking the asset allocation in analytics. We've got a unique growth rate for every single different asset class. So unique growth rate for North American, UK, emerging, gilts, bonds, etc. And we create a bespoke growth rate for each portfolio. So now I can update the portfolio. You can see the headline numbers down here. They'll update. So suddenly it's a completely different conversation. If I come back to my cash flow model, now using consistent data, I've just been showing you, Keith, all this lovely analysis and analytics, past performance, asset allocation, charges, volatility. When I swivel my chair now and start looking at my cash flow chart, I want to be using the same data. So I've brought the data across, and we're using the same consistent data now to look forward. We've been looking back for the last half an hour. Now we're going to be looking forward. And I'm using that same consistent data. And now all of a sudden, it doesn't look half as bad. Suddenly the cash flow is 162 in the red, and now those assets are going to last well into their early 90s. So maybe my advice now suddenly differs, because the growth was just less than 1% out, but clearly 1% on a very long period of time compound. So that's how it links to that. The other thing, running out of time here, I want to make sure we answer any questions. So again, feel free to ask some questions if you haven't already. The other thing I just wanted to pick up on is, when we're talking about portfolio construction and when we're talking about fund selection, that's obviously very, very linked to risk profiling. I won't go into the risk profiling tool in depth here, only in terms of the asset allocation. So our risk profiling tool built into the heart of analytics is this one, Investment Planner, and it creates kind of an end-to-end workflow that starts off with an ATR and ends up with a report detailing the asset allocation you've selected for that client, and equally the portfolio that you're then recommending. We do 95% of that in-house, particularly in terms of the asset allocations. We use proprietary systems to pull in a load of data. I think we use Oxford Economics now for that. They work with people like the World Bank, so they've got a lot of heritage. So we take a lot of economic forecasting and data and stochastic analysis from them. We have a huge amount of expertise in-house because we have our own investments team. We have our own MPS. I think we manage about 5 billion now. So we have a huge amount of expertise in-house that help us create these asset allocations. So what you do get under the quarter. Under that message center, they'll give you updates on here. But I'll just quickly go through these. I think I've saved them in here. Every year you get a new methodology document. So the methodology document just explains not just how the risk profiles work, but how those asset allocations are put together and the assumptions we're using, the forecasts we're using, and how we're constructing those asset class models. So again, if you use the risk profiling tool, you can have that on file for the methodology. We release a strategic asset allocation update every time the strategic asset allocations change. So it will detail what the asset allocations are. So again, if you're trying to build portfolios to different asset allocations, there they are. Our risk profile is 1 to 5, but we have short, medium, and long. So obviously, if you're a long-term investor compared to a short-term investor, you both might be 3 out of 5, but you should have a completely different asset allocation because one of you's got 50 years to invest and the other one's got 5. So that's why there are 15 risk profiles, short, medium, and long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then also the changes, because we would have made adjustments. We're telling you how the asset classes have adjusted since the last update, and then each short, medium, and long forecast will give you the different percentile performance, basically giving you some analysis in terms of the most your client can expect with these risk profiles. Really helps with capacity for loss discussions. You can show a client, look, you've come out as a risk profile 3, Mr. or Mrs. Client. You know, the worst drawdown event you should expect is about 29%. So it really gets some understanding that, okay, the performance over that long arc of time should go up, but there will be periods of time where there'll be market corrections. And in a risk profile 3 short term, it's likely to be about 29%. But equally, this is kind of the average growth rate you should expect in these different profiles as well. So huge amount of intelligence on these reports. You also get little strategic asset allocation notes as well. So again, when we make changes to our asset allocations, you get a 2-3 pager that explains some of the research we've done in terms of the different asset classes, how they've been performing recently, and how that's impacted our decisions to modify the allocations and our kind of house view about the asset allocations and our view of them. And these have been reworked recently. So every single every single risk profile has their own possibility losses document. They're really, really nice documents that detail how much risk is inherent within that profile. So again, if I'm trying to construct a portfolio around a particular asset allocation, if you're using our risk profile, these are the asset allocations that will pull through, and these will automatically map to MPS, multi-asset, or if you want to build your own portfolio, again, you can use this. But this, again, my clients just come out as a 3 medium. This will explain to them exactly what a 3 medium is, target asset allocation. These are the highs and lows you'd have experienced over the last 20 years, Mr. and Mrs. Clients. You can really see, you know, how much you would have fallen in particular years. There's a possibility of losing certain amounts in any given year. And again, kind of raw data in terms of the most you could lose, the most you could gain, the average growth of that particular asset allocation, and then 1,000 projected forecasts into the future, showing the range of returns as well. So again, when it comes to capacity for loss discussions, getting clients to truly understand the risk inherent within these risk profiles, that's what these are for. They're client facing. They're not built for you. They're built for your client, for them to understand it. And this all comes together into a report at the end. So this is what the risk profile report will look like. We're actually rebuilding our risk profiler at the moment, which is really exciting. So this will change quite significantly. In about 6 months, we should be able to release it. We've seen some screenshots recently. It looks really, really slick. So in terms of the workflow, it'd be very similar, but the graphics and the reporting will look a lot neater, and you should be able to tailor it to your color scheme as well. But so it looks fairly similar to this. You've got the risk profile cover page. You've got the questions that the clients filled in with their ATR. They came out as a 3 out of 5. There's the capacity for loss discussion you had with them, all filled in. There's how it conforms to the FCA good practice recommendations for risk profiling. That's the old possibility losses report. I just showed you the newer looking one. So this is an older report. I did this about a year or 2 ago. So ignore that. And then probably the most important page is this one. This is at the very end. We're recommending a new investment solution, whether we've built that ourselves, whether we're recommending MPS or a collection of multi-asset funds. It will automatically tell you whether it's a 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5. So the final report will look a bit like this, where you're saying to the client, look, you've come out as a 3 out of 5, but your existing portfolio is a 2 out of 5. We're recommending this portfolio because it sits at a 3 out of 5 where your risk profiles come out. And let's have a look at all the differences between those 2 solutions, the performance, the asset allocation, the underlying holdings, etc. And then I think I've asked for all of the fact sheets to be tied in at the end. So I thought I'd show the risk profiler because we've made quite a lot of changes to it recently. With as I said, we brought all of the asset allocation intelligence in house. So So I thought I'd just touch on that because, again, that very much links to portfolio construction. Super. I think that was pretty much everything I wanted to cover off. I think any other thing that might just be a very quick win whilst I'm here, market movements. That's a little known feature. I can look at, let's do multi-asset. We can look at multi-asset. If I'm looking for a decent fund for my client, multi-asset single manager, I might want to look at, what are the most popular funds in the industry. And one way of looking at that is the fund size. How much assets under management are these funds gobbling up? So I could say, look, over the last year, you've got different reports you could run off, but I could say funds most attracting money and generate report. Again, I can do this for any sector. Again, this is a huge amount of data in the background that just pulls into this. And I can then start looking at what are the most popular funds. So you can see what the fund size was last year compared to what it is this year. We can take away the effects of performance, because clearly a lot of that fund size would just be generated if the fund has performed very well. And then we're stripping out and working out, okay, how much of that is just purely inflow. Unsurprisingly, SJP at the very top there. But then you've got the other funds as well. So again, if I'm looking for funds, I want to give my clients maybe some comfort. The funds we're picking, it's not just me that thinks these funds are good, but it's society as a whole. That's a dangerous thing. But you can see, if I'm looking at Vanguard Life Strategy 80, for example, in the last year alone, they've pulled in a billion. I think that's a billion more assets under management to the existing 13 they had last year. Super. Thought it was a quick win just to quickly show you. Right, 4 minutes left. Let's quickly stop the share screen so I can just read some of these questions in case you have them. Actually, before I do that, just save myself a bit of time. Just quickly end on this one. Those of you that are maybe not using CashCalc or Advisor Asset, or maybe even analytics, or maybe our AI applications, the team will be contacting you over the coming days to offer you a free trial and a one-to-one session. I appreciate we've covered off quite a lot there at some speed, so they can very much slow it down and tailor the demo around your processes, because obviously everyone's following a slightly different process. If you've enjoyed this webinar, we run loads of webinars over the course of each month. So feel free to scan that QR code. That will give you a list of all the upcoming webinars, and feel free to sign yourself up to those. Me and the team are very active on LinkedIn. We post all the time hints and tips and kind of impressions in terms of what's being developed and what to look forward to. So again, scan that QR code at the very end, link in with me. And I tend to share all the things that my team are posting if I think it's relevant to FE Fund Info. Super. Let's just quickly stop playing this. I think it's this screen. Okay, stop sharing any questions that are left unanswered. Answered. I don't think that one is. Thank you, Lisa. I found when filtering on platform, if it can be inaccurate, it only seems to recognize share class and not fund. I want to know if fund is available on the platform regardless of share class, not just share class available. So the way the platform data works is the platforms themselves will tell us which share classes are available. So it's just the way that operates. So ultimately, we're very much dependent on the providers themselves, the platforms telling us. Ultimately, once a share class is available on a platform, clearly that data doesn't change all too often. So we don't really need to be them updating us every week or every month. It's obviously quite static, that data. But admittedly, as with any kind of data aggregation, when you're so heavily reliant on the platforms to update that data, sometimes you will find that you might find a fund that's not available on Transact, but actually it is, for example. Now, fortunately, most of the data we create in our world in analytics, we derive ourselves. So we have all of the underlying data, and we create data on top of it, and you're filtering off the back of that. But yes, there are some data sets that we collect, like platform availability, unfortunately, and that we're so reliant on them providing us with that data. So you will find the odd occasion where that's not updated, unfortunately. Hopefully that's answered that, Lisa. Nicholas, when exporting to Excel from a table, it adds the column headings every 18 rows. Yeah, that's a good shout. Let's just quickly answer that. I think that's the only one that needs answering. Actually, you asked another one, Nicholas, as well. Can FE Analytics integrate with Aberdeen Wrap? I don't think so. I don't think that's one of our integrations. Most of the integrations were set up many, many years ago, and I don't think Aberdeen Wrap do. I could be wrong. Bear with me, hang on a sec. Let's just quickly check that. I've got import guides here. Because I know Standard Life did. Standard Life definitely integrated with us, but I don't know whether Aberdeen do. That might be something you have to check with Aberdeen, unfortunately. Your question about exporting to Excel is a good one as well. Bear with me, I'm just going to press play in a minute. Let's just open up a load of funds. You can see this fund panel. Okay, let's just press play again. So this was your question. Actually, whilst I'm waiting for this to load up, I have put this in the chat, by the way. This is a website we put together that has all of the hints and tips on every application we have. So I've put the link in the chat, so feel free to take it and copy it and put it into your maybe favorites and bookmark it. If we'll take you to this screen, we've got all the different applications here, all recent webinar recordings found in here as well. If you click on any one of these applications, it takes you to all of the hints and tips we've created. So most of the things I've just covered off there in that webinar will be in here somewhere. So if I want to look at investment plan is a good one because that's the risk profile. We didn't cover that off. If I click on the risk profiling tool, it takes you to the risk profiler. It gives you a little download guide, but also a 20, in this case, it's quite a big one because it's quite a big feature. Click on play and it will take you to the YouTube location of that video and play the 21-minute video of our risk profiling tool. So it's a really good thing to work your way through. And those of you that aren't using the other applications of ours, Command Deck, Nexus AI, FinExcel, CashCalc, you've got the same there as well. So you can watch some webinars and tips to get an understanding on what they do as well. So yeah, I've added that to the chat. Right, let's cover off your question quickly. I think the answer to your question, I think there is a way, yes. So I think you have to put it in CSV if memory serves. Bear with me. So your question was, I'll try and recreate what you're doing. Come on. Every time you get a table, come on. Every time you get sorry, that's a bad example. Let's do this one instead. Be a bit clearer. That'd be quicker to load up as well. When you load up a table in analytics, every so many rows you get the columns appearing again, the headers. So there we go. So you got the headers appear again, 1 month, 3 months, 10 years, etc. Obviously, it's logical why we do that, of course, because it's neat to be able to see rather than having to scroll up to the top and remind yourself what the header is. It's just useful to have a break in there. So in answer to your question, you can't change that. The HTML screen that we're looking at here is hard coded. When you export to Excel, that one, the headers pull through because the formatting pulls through as well. So let's do that. Come on. I should load up Excel. Table. There we go. So you'll see, I think this was your question. Apologies if it wasn't, but I think it was. When you pull that into Excel, what you'll get annoyingly is again these breaks. So you get the 10, the 20 funds, the break, etc. Now, ultimately, yes, you can just delete them. You could just go in there and delete every break. But I appreciate you're probably rolling your eyes as I'm saying that because there's no way you're going to want to scroll down this and delete every single one. So what you can do, so I get away, I'm pretty sure if you export as CSV, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think if you export as CSV, it doesn't show those because it doesn't bring the formatting across. It just dumps it into Excel. Yeah, there we go. Without the breaks. So hopefully that answers that question. But yes, that's the way of doing it. Just export it into CSV, and it's a much better format as well because the other one is more of an old technology, just bringing across, just literally dumping the data and the formatting. But for the most part, you don't want the formatting. You just want the raw data. So always export a CSV, much better. Cool. I think I'm sharing the screen, aren't I? Yes. Super. I think that's it, folks. I think that's all the questions. Yeah, good. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, that's all done. Super. Sorry, we've gone a bit over, folks. I hope you've enjoyed that. What I might do actually just end on the screen showing that QR code just in case anyone didn't get time to pop that in. There we go. So let's just end on that. So feel free to scan those QR codes. Thank you very much for joining us. Hope you found that useful. Hope that will save you a bit of time moving forward using these solutions. Obviously, any questions, you've got a help desk, feel free to reach out to those guys. And clearly, you can feel free to scan the QR code and join us for future webinars. Hopefully, it's as sunny where you are as it is here this morning. Enjoy the rest of the day. And thank you very much for joining us. Ta.